What's good, family? Peace and welcome to World War Wrestling. I do not have any notes for last night's Monday Night Raw. It was a banger, though. It opened up with CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, to my understanding, and I thought that the Seth Rollins and CM Punk drama was enough. I thought that was boiling up for 10 years. I didn't even really realize that Drew McIntyre and CM Punk had beef, that they had realistic issues. But if you are Drew McIntyre, you had one of the greatest title reigns of all time, but nobody saw it because it was during the pandemic. And now you're climbing back to the mountaintop, and then suddenly, once you're there, CM Punk comes in on a Learjet, hops off at the summit of the mountain, and just takes a few more steps up and goes, "Wow, I'm the greatest in the world." I think CM Punk has to piss off the majority of professional wrestlers in the industry because and it's not because he wasn't great before he left for 10 years. It's the fact that decade, for a decade, Drew McIntyre had been to every single company possible, rebuilding himself as Drew Galloway. Seth Rollins held things down in WWE, creating amazing change. You have the Bucks and Tony Khan working together over years with Cody Rhodes to create a brand new platform for everybody. And then you have guys like CM Punk who, by just the grace of God, just by who they are as a person, is far more popular than any of these men put together. I can feel it deep because I look back at many of my job experiences, and I think the saying is like it's like putting Beyonce at a Starbucks. You know, it's Beyonce. It don't stop being Beyonce. It don't stop being Beyonce just because she's wearing a green apron and serving you drinks. It's still Beyonce. That means Beyonce is going to be more popular, more valuable than every other person up in this bitch. Why? His personality is completely different than everybody else in the business, honestly. His demeanor is completely different than everyone else in the business. The way that he deals with people, the way that he treats people, the way that he views himself. You can only view and treat people to the extension of how you view and treat yourself. If you don't have a very high perspective of self, the way that you treat other people is going to be pretty shitty. If you're going through tables, ladders, and chairs and busting yourself open on a daily basis, going on the road every single day, your body's in pain, you're exhausted, you're tired, and you're performing in a highly physical, demanding arena for the past 10 years, you're probably not going to be the most likable person to fans. You're probably going to honestly very easily lose sight of what works and what does not work because you're staring at things from a first-hand perspective looking right ahead of you versus someone who's able to have a bird's eye perspective of everything. They're watching everything, they love the sport, they're looking at everything, and they can tell you what works and what doesn't work because they've looked at the past, they've looked at the future, they looked at the present, and they have a great scope. When you're going through that firsthand experience, like Drew McIntyre is, it's very difficult to figure out where you are because you never really take a time to reflect, to review, to move ahead quicker. You just keep going and keep going and keep going and keep picking yourself up, keep picking yourself up, keep picking yourself up. You keep forcing yourself through it, forcing yourself through it, forcing yourself through it. And I feel like honestly, Drew McIntyre is kind of just angry at himself. And it's hard to kind of reconcile that regret when you've made this career decision and you have family members dying, you have people that you love more than anything else on planet dying, and you can't be there to say goodbye. You can't be there to support your family during that hard time. Very difficult. Very difficult. CM Punk didn't have to go through any of that. So I kind of get it, but I still don't think it's right to blame CM Punk for Drew McIntyre's life issues and problems and situations. He made a very firm decision to become a WWE superstar. You should definitely stand by that. And it wasn't a bad decision necessarily to do that. But I do feel for what Drew McIntyre is going through, and I do understand the pain and suffering of that. But I think if it was real regret, you would probably take some time off and you don't make a storyline about it. You like remove yourself from the situation to spend some time with your family. You could spend 3 months or spend a year with your family, and no one's gonna miss you, Drew McIntyre. It's gonna be okay. If you took 10 years off, I think everyone would miss Drew McIntyre. But I don't think most people have that kind of comfortability with their ego and with their lifestyle. Like you have to be a pretty sane individual within yourself. Like the idea of like CM Punk being a narcissist or something like that is out the window because you can't really go 10 years without that narcissistic supply and expect yourself to still function the same as a person or let alone become a better person out of it. You know, that's that's exactly what happened. Everybody else is simply just going through the motions at this point in time. They're part of the cult and they have to keep trying to advocate for themselves and advocate for themselves and advocate for themselves and defend their decisions and defend what they're going through instead of pausing for a moment and going like, hey, like maybe it's not worth it. That I don't see that happening with anybody in this business or in this industry. With that though, there was some stuff with Piper Niven and Chelsea Green going against Katana and Carter, and that was a fucking phenomenal match. The ending was a little goofy. Piper Niven hitting the Vader bomb and Chelsea Green. Like I don't really like a lot of those spots where it's like it seems like I've had plenty of time as the viewer to go that's not the right person, which I kind of didn't. Like I did, but I did not. But the code breaker from the top doing that much damage to Piper Niven, that seemed a little ridiculous. I felt like she should have ate that. I felt like this could have been a very good back and forth type of feud. I don't know. Chelsea Green and Piper Niven don't seem like they really get along. They seem like polar opposites. It may be in the sense of like a Trish Stratus and who's the girl? Who's the woman before her? Anne Marie. I think it's hard to go from like dealing with an Anne Marie. I don't even know if that's her name or not. I don't even really remember her. Eva Marie, which was very interesting because I don't think Eva Marie like actually wrestled at all, but hopefully she taught Piper Niven a lot about being a fucking wrestler or a superstar. Because I feel like there's some women in WWE that are just like superstars. Like they don't need to lift a finger, they don't need to do anything. Like Valhalla. Valhalla is a superstar. She doesn't have to do nothing. She don't got to lift a finger. She just has to be present, be aware, and be sharp, and help out her guy in whatever the hell he's doing. That's a beautiful thing. I don't have a lot of notes for tonight, even though it was a 3 hour show. I was kind of in and out with this because it's just like, and the way that AEW had like 5 different shows during the week at one point in time, and they reduced that down to 3. I feel like instead of Raw being 3 hours long, which I guess works for them, but it doesn't really work for me, they want as much content as possible, right? I feel like there needs to be a fourth brand or a third brand. I say fourth brand because you have WWE, SmackDown, you have NXT. You also have Level Up, so it's like the fifth or fourth. But you need another brand on this roster, I feel like, for people to get their attention. I feel like you should have Monday Night Raw, Wednesday Night SmackDown, and then have a new show on Friday nights, or keep SmackDown on Friday and have a show that either competes with AEW on Wednesday nights or have a show that competes with ROH and Impact Wrestling on Thursday nights. I know it's pretty hard to find that time and find that schedule and find that funding to make another show. Excuse me. But I feel like 3 hours of Raw gives you the idea. Like the opening here was Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. I almost didn't watch it because sometimes you feel like you can miss the first hour and then come back at 9 o'clock and keep watching it from there. You can miss like the 9 o'clock hour, come back at 10 o'clock and watch from there. But it's like I will say that WWE is simultaneously becoming more like intricate in the same way that it's kind of just repeating the same old habits over and over again. I feel like the reason why a lot of people like WWE and do not like WWE is because it is the same thing kind of over and over again. They have found a formula that works, they have found a method that works, and they are sticking to it. They are not changing. They're not taking anybody else's perspectives or opinions on it. If you are not one of the affiliated or one of the people that got over inside of their industry, they do not want you giving advice. So, by that chance, the fans that watch WWE and that engage with WWE content, you're not really seeing everything that pro wrestling has to offer. You are seeing a PG product, maybe a PG 13 product, but you're kind of like it's mostly just promos and backstage segments to my knowledge and understanding because I felt like I was watching the same Shinsuke Nakamura and Cody Rhodes promo over and over again tonight, and the match was not memorable. It's mainly because like what they've done to Shinsuke Nakamura over the past years, they have not made now that he's nearing retirement, now that you only have a few years left of Shinsuke Nakamura being able to perform at a level and be able to take bumps at a level, you're trying to make him seem like a credible threat. You're trying to make him seem great, but you spent the majority of this guy's career and run in WWE treating him like a joke. That's why, once again, I think it's kind of hard for people to really be upset with CM Punk because if you are so upset with how WWE utilizes your character, I don't think Seth Rollins has ever had to go through that. I don't think Seth Rollins ever had to deal with a point in his career where he didn't like his storyline or he didn't like how he was being utilized. He's always kind of come across as one of the golden children of WWE. He's always come across as one of the hand selected picks of WWE executives. I don't think CM Punk and Seth Rollins have anything really in common at all. Seth Rollins is an industry plant. He's an industry baby, and CM Punk and Drew McIntyre are not. Cody Rhodes was an industry darling. He was a second generation wrestler. He like even though he was a jobber, he was a pretty high level jobber. He had a pretty great run as Stardust. He had a pretty good run with Legacy. They wanted to make him something that he wasn't. He just was too freaking small. He was a scrawny little so and so when he first got started here. Now he's put some muscle on, but for the most part, he looks the exact same. Let's be real. But he put a little bit of muscle on. He dyed his hair a different color, and he's sticking with it. You know, I don't think anyone can really relate to what it's like to not being utilized properly other than Drew McIntyre because he had the three-man band gimmick and he only really became a credible threat in WWE because of the time that he spent away in Impact, the time that he spent away, I think in New Japan, but I'm not entirely sure. But he spent a great amount of time out of WWE rebuilding his brand, rebuilding his image, and he came back as an absolute monster. Um, and that's honestly just how it goes with any industry, any business, anything that you do in life. You might have to take some time away from what you're doing. You might have to take a hiatus, take a break to reevaluate what you're doing, to reevaluate your methodology, to reevaluate your perspective and your approach. Because if you've been doing the same thing for 2 to 10 years, you are pretty locked in to your motions. You're pretty locked into what you're doing. You're blindly focused upon what has worked for you and what has not worked for you. I feel like Shinsuke Nakamura. I did not see the winner of the match either. I'll put that out there. Unfortunately, I just really couldn't get into it. When they busted the ring bell person, and he was like bleeding all over the place, I was kind of like, why? Why? Like that's way too much blood for him to be like for nothing to be stopping right now. It just kind of reached the realm of like unbelievability. And I did not see in any way, shape, or form Shinsuke Nakamura winning any match ever because I feel like he's lost 100 matches in a row. They have completely made Shinsuke Nakamura a joke. They've completely made every single non-white wrestler on their roster a complete joke. And you have a bunch of these little tiny white guys who've never gotten into a real fight before, beating what are supposed to be legitimate, credible threats, and it really just destroys the entire industry. It really just destroys the entire image of the business because at a certain point in time, the guy who is posed as a legitimate threat should be a legitimate threat. You could you got guys going over to NXT. No one wants to lose. No one wants the job. No one wants to work. No one wants to put somebody else over. Everybody else wants to be the main event talent. Everyone else wants to be the good guy. Everyone else wants to go over. The fans decide whether or not you go over, not you. The fans decide whether or not they like you, not you. And like R-Truth, you can do that even without necessarily being a top contender or being a top talent. But even then, with R-Truth, they kind of destroyed that as well. The stuff with R-Truth and Judgment Day is absolutely hilarious. It kind of looks like Judgment Day is falling apart, but just like the Bloodline, it makes honestly, if you look at the Bloodline storyline, and I hate to go on a tangent here, but I kind of have to, but it relates. You've had a lot of points inside of this Bloodline storyline over the past 1,000 days, about 3 years now, almost 3 years now, in which you thought the Bloodline was going to fall apart. You thought Roman Reigns was going to lose. And it honestly just makes the story more interesting because it's honestly the lowest hanging fruit that you can go to within that kind of storyline. But the overarching redeeming factor inside WWE storytelling is that they seem to really show people how to have healthy relationships, how to have functional ideas with other people, how to focus on business or how to focus on your friendship and relationship. And it seems like if the talents don't want to break up, they don't have to break up. If it's insisted for them to break up and they don't want to work together anymore, it seems like they kind of break up and do their own thing. But if not, everything kind of works out for the best, which I think is like really interesting and also really like unique because in every other like business, it seems like everyone's falling apart, a faction's together for like a month or two and then they break up. And like the long storm storytelling here with the Judgment Day and innumerable times in which other teams would have broken up, other teams would have imploded, other teams would have turned against each other, but the Judgment Day keeps getting stronger, the Judgment Day keeps going out there and they keep competing at a high level. And this aspect with R-Truth can honestly be something that turns R-Truth back into a real legitimate factor in WWE because he's like the Joker. If you're looking at R-Truth from my perspective, if you're looking at him as a black man looking at another black man, R-Truth is like the fucking Joker to me. He's like a fucking evil genius. I think to any other viewer, a white person or someone who doesn't respect black people, you're probably just laughing at him like, who's this idiot? What is he doing? What he's doing is like, it's either going to completely destroy the Judgment Day from the inside out, or it's going to show R-Truth in a light very similar to Adam Cole, and that yeah, I'm joking with you, but I'm joking with you because I can, not because I have to. Because I'm on the truth killings, and I can kill you, I can destroy you, I can get all my guys here to destroy you. But what kind of seemed interesting to me in this dynamic, JD McDonough was advertised as joining the Judgment Day for quite some time, with Finn Balor coming in. Damian Priest and Finn Balor had their issues. Rhea Ripley brought in Dominic Mysterio, who has not won a single match, I believe. I think he's lost 100 matches in a row, like Shinsuke Nakamura. So it's like they have both brought in their people, but Damian Priest hasn't really brought in his person, and he wants to be the leader of the group. There's no other better way to become a leader of the group other than to recruit your own people. Damian Priest said, I will deal with truth myself, which made it seem like he didn't say, I'm going to deal with R-Truth. I'm going to kill R-Truth. He's going to say, I'll talk to him. I'll talk to my guy. I'll talk to my dude. It makes it seem like Damian Priest is the one that's kind of brought R-Truth into this mix. Even earlier, when they were saying what they were saying and talking about what they were talking about, he didn't go Ron. He went truth. Truth. And what he said was correct. It's like, it's a very interesting dynamic. It's a very Joker-esque dynamic. It's a very, like, insane, maniacal genius type of dynamic. And as we saw with the 24/7 championship, R-Truth can be very cunning. He can be a very clever guy. He's thinking at an entirely different level that most people are not thinking at. So, if I missed anything for tonight, then I apologize for that. But I just wasn't really in it last night. I'm falling in and out of love with professional wrestling. World War Wrestling is a great way to kind of explain my thoughts and perspectives of this, but I feel like I much do prefer AEW, TNA, MLW, ROH content to mainstream WWE content is because when WWE is not predictable, it's just a terrible storyline that just should not exist. Alpha Academy, I just don't really like it. I did like the match with Odinson. I don't think no, it's actually not Odinson. Odinson is on NWA, which comes on tonight in 4 hours. What the fuck is his name? Ivar? I don't remember the other guy. Everyone's getting injured though. Oh, there was one more thing before I sign off. Imperium. I have to fight them all by myself because of Kofi Kingston. I'm the last man standing. I'm the sole survivor. I don't know if that was a good. I don't know if that was a good impersonation or not. I really haven't heard him talk enough to. It's how he sounds to me. He sounds like a guy with a California accent trying to pretend to be something he is not. He sounds like he grew up in America his entire life and he's just like straining that accent so much. And if you catch him ordering a cheeseburger or something, he's just kind of like Giovanni Vinci becoming like a male model or whatever. Which is interesting because they made it seem like Giovanni Vinci was going to be the breakout talent here, kind of like he was when he had a solo run at NXT. I don't remember Ludwig Kaiser having a solo run at NXT. Giovanni Vinci had an entire rebrand and solo run, and then they put him right back in Imperium. It was great. My son's calling me, so I gotta go though. So, peace. This was World War Wrestling.